Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Beef Up Front podcast here on Pick Swap Media. Joined by Joe Kometz as we're back for our second episode of the season for the college football show. This time previewing week one, we'll have our 5 big games of the week as well as our week 0 recap. But before we get into it, welcome back, Joe, and how are you?
I'm fantastic. Week one. I mean, it's here. It's everything that we've been waiting for. I know I said last week about week 0 being like the bread. Now here is the main course. I can't wait. There's just so many great games. I know we're only going to touch on a couple, but it's just going to be such a great week of football, and I can't wait. Thursday through Monday, all awesome primetime top tier games. Let's get into it because I could talk all day.
All right, so before we start into week one, we'll go over how we did week 0. Week 0, as we know, was kind of a crapshoot, not the best games on the schedule. I did not have a very good week. I went 3-2 straight up, 0-4 against the spread, 1-2-1 for the over-unders, 0-1 on the upset, and then 0-1 on the best bet. That put me at 4-10-1 for opening week. So definitely not the start we wanted to get out to, but also those teams last week were all kind of hit or miss. So I'm going to give myself a bit of a pass on this one. Hope to get back on track week one. And then, Joe, you went 4-1 straight up, 1-3 against the spread, 1-2-1 for your over-unders, 0-1 for your upset special, and 1-0 for your best bet, putting your record for the week at 7-7-1. So not the best start to the show for us, but I think we'll get back on track.
Full eligibility. Yeah, no, we are like also for one, I don't really gamble that much. Like I don't really pick against the spread. And also like with week 0, you don't know what you're getting. Like obviously if we can go back in time and see, Vanderbilt won 63-10. Like obviously like hindsight, every bad pick we make looks stupid and every good pick we make looks like we're geniuses. But I think we're gonna get better with the spread as the year goes along, once you start seeing what teams are. Like I think this is gonna be a little bit challenging too, because a lot of these teams are, of their seasons. But hey, I mean, listen, we could have been worse. Remember last year? I think conference championship games, you and I were like 3-7, like straight up. Like we did. That was like our worst week. But I mean, I don't think it's terrible. I think it could have went worse.
Yeah, I mean, straight up is kind of the most important thing. Just picking like the overall winner, and then if we can get some of these over unders and against the spread in, I think that's just kind of the cherry on top. Because all 5 of our games each week, they'll usually be like ranked, or at least one ranked team and a team that's just on the cusp of being ranked. So without further ado, we'll get into it. Like you said, really good games from Thursday to Monday. We only have Thursday and Saturday games on our slate, though. And we started off with Thursday night, the game I'm looking forward to most on Thursday. That's West Virginia traveling to number 17 Pitt. 7 o'clock on ESPN. Pitt is a 7.5-point favorite and a 52-point total in this one. First time these two longtime rivals have met up since 2011, so it should be a fun night out in Pittsburgh.
Like you just said, Coyle, I mean, first time these guys are meeting since 2011. This is like the dark side of realignment that, no one really pays attention to at first. This was a huge rivalry. I know, we were younger, 2011, like I was like just really starting to get into college football, but these two teams hate each other. Their fan bases despise each other. It's awesome that they're finally playing again. I hope they make this a consistent thing and not just like, once or twice every 5 or 6 years. I'll admit I'm not that confident in Pitt winning, but I like variety between Cole and I. He normally gets to the, we have a little spreadsheet here. He normally gets to the picks first. I saw he picked West Virginia, and I couldn't go the same all the way down the board. But this is going to be a perfect toss-up game to really go against my gut. You got 2 massive question marks at quarterback with JT Daniels coming in from USC against his former backup, Keaton Slovis at USC. It should be a shootout. I'm really excited for this game. I mean, these two were solid quarterbacks. Keaton Slovis had a great 2020. USC, even though they started the season really late, they were 5-0 in that COVID-shortened year. And if they beat Oregon, there was a lot of talk about them putting USC into the playoff. So, I mean, 2020 looking back, I know it was already crazy, but like it was just so insane how we were about to have a season where the Pac-12 and Big Ten just didn't play football. But he didn't have a great 2021 year. He couldn't really follow it up. I mean, that definitely didn't help that Clay Hilton got fired week 2. There was definitely a lot of off the field stuff going on. USC went 4-8, which not great even if you're a G5 team, but especially if you're a team like USC and you're supposed to be like the premier brand on the West Coast. Ultimately, I think he's just going to be a little bit better here than JT Daniels, who's kind of been sitting a lot. Lost out in QB battle with Stetson Bennett, which I mean Stetson Bennett isn't exactly the greatest quarterback in America, even though he is a national champion quarterback. So that being said, give me the Panthers 38-35 at home.
I'm going to take the upset here. I'm taking West Virginia 31, Pitt 28 in this one. So I like West Virginia plus a 7.5 as well as over 52 in that one. You're taking the over as well and West Virginia. So we both like the same play there. I got West Virginia winning outright though. But kind of like you were touching on, just excited to see two like old school rivals get back out on the field against each other. West Virginia currently riding a 3-game win streak in this series, but this is a battle like you were talking about, Joe, between two former USC guys. Go out east and let's see if they can kind of revive their careers. Two highly regarded players come out of high school, and they have another chance at some power programs. So let's see what guy kind of gets out on the right foot to start off this, I guess you could say, last chance for them. If they want to be like an eventual NFL quarterback, they're going to have good, successful seasons this year, I think. This is going to be a common theme of the show, I think, but Pitt lost a lot going through all these games. A lot of these teams lost like more than you really think of. I think you can say, and including OC Mark Whipple, who worked a lot of magic last year for Pitt. Not sure why they let him go to Nebraska. And then the Stark duo of quarterback Kenny Pickett and wide receiver Jordan Addison. Pickett, first-round pick to the Steelers. Addison transferred to USC. That's some major losses there. So I think it's going to be an adjustment period for Pitt earlier in the season. And they could catch their stride down the road, maybe finish going like 9-3 or something, really come on towards the end of the season. But I like West Virginia to go on the road here, surprise some people and start off the season. It's been a little bit since they've been regarded as one of the better programs in the Big 12 and all of college football. So I think this would be a really good building block to start off a new season for West Virginia. We'll go to Saturday now. Probably the second best game on the slate for Saturday. That's number 11 Oregon versus number 3 Georgia. Technically a neutral site game, but this is at Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta where the Falcons play. 3:30 on ABC. Georgia is a whopping 17-point favorite, and the total for this one is 53. What are your thoughts on this matchup?
I am going to take Georgia minus 17. I have them winning 41-20, just simply because, Coyle, you've known ever since I think we've known each other. Me and our roommate Luke have thought Bo Nix was like the second coming when he was a freshman at Auburn. I had them before COVID like messed up the schedule. I did like a article or something for Coyle, and like I predicted Auburn to win the national title and go undefeated with Bo Nix. I can't bet on him. He's burnt me too many times. I think he's just going to make a couple mistakes. Georgia, I know they've lost a ton to the NFL. But that being said, they're just going to reload now. I think they're starting to get towards that Alabama territory. Not necessarily that they're going to win the national title every other year, but that they can now plug and play guys. They're getting a ton of 5 stars. Like they lost a lot of experience, but I don't think they lost a lot of talent. Oregon is coming in year 1 with Dan Lanning, who was Georgia's defensive coordinator. So that being said, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting to see that chess match between him and Kirby Smart. But I think Oregon's just going to be in for a little bit of an adjustment phase after Cristobal left for Miami. And like I said, I just can't bet on Bo Nix. It's not a shot at Oregon. They're probably going to have a fine here. I can't do it. So I think Georgia's going to win this game pretty convincingly.
All right, so you got Georgia minus the 17 and over 53. I'm going to take the opposites there. I'm still taking Georgia to win. I'm having them win 24-20, but I have Oregon plus the 17 and then under 53 there. I know this is like a neutral site game technically, but it's going to be packed out with Georgia fans, 90% probably full of them. I'm just still surprised to see how lopsided the spread is. You're really against Bo Nix. He's had some up and down moments in his college career, but he's in for QB with Oregon now. And he's an experienced quarterback who's played in a lot of big games in his career. He's had matchups against Georgia before. And Mario Cristobal, before he left for Miami, was recruiting really well, especially up front in the trenches. He's like a offensive line, defensive line type of guru. So I think the Ducks are going to be able to compete at the line, and that's the biggest thing, I think, when it comes to this team. When you look at that team last year that had Jordan Davis and Trayvon Walker up front, there's a guy who might even be better than them this year, and that's Jalen Carter. If Oregon's able to block Georgia up front and just contain that defensive line, they're going to be able to hang around in this game, I think. Georgia lost a ton with 5 defenders going in the first round. Also lost George Pickens, Zamir White, some more. You do bring back Stetson Bennett, the returning national championship quarterback. That's a big step. And they're also loaded. I mean, a ton of turnovers never good unless you're Alabama and Georgia and you got 5 first rounders ready to go for your next season. But I'm expecting this game to be similar to kind of what we saw between Georgia and Clemson last year, where it seemed like whoever made that first big play on defense won. And then Georgia had that pick six over Clemson on DJ Uiagalelei, and took that back to the house. And that was really the turning point in that game. I believe the final was like 14-6. So I think it's going to be a low scoring game between two physical teams who are good up front at the line of scrimmage. Oregon covers, but Georgia wins, and the under hits in this one. Third game on the slate, still saying on Saturday, number 23 Cincinnati, same time as our first game on Saturday. Traveling to number 19 Arkansas, 3:30 on ESPN. Arkansas is a 6-point favorite with the total at 52.
First thing I'm going to say, you couldn't make this the noon game. Like,
Yeah.
you have 3 games against ranked versus ranked opponents, and you're putting 2 of them on at the same time. I just think it's very stupid, but that's just me. I have Arkansas winning this game 21-18. So I'm taking Cincy to cover, and I'm taking the under of 52. Props to Cincinnati for this game. I mean, I don't really know how to feel about this, but it's good to see Cincinnati taking this type of game that a lot of Power Five schools wouldn't take in the non-conference going on the road to Arkansas. Cincinnati lost a lot. There's no secret to that. All of the big key pieces from that playoff run last year are gone. Going on the road to play an Arkansas team that has very high expectations. But that being said, last year, you look at Arkansas's season, they didn't really beat anyone too impressive at the end of the year. At the time, there were a lot of high-ranked opponents that they beat. But at the end of the year, their best win was an 8-4 A&M team that finished unranked in the AAP poll and 25th in the coaches poll. And I know A&M obviously had that win against Bama, but still, Arkansas has a gauntlet of a non-conference schedule with this game, and they go to BYU, who's 25th. So, I mean, also props to Arkansas for not scheduling any cupcakes like a lot of other SECs. When they played BYU right in the middle of that SEC schedule in October. This game, I'm not trying to sound over dramatic, kind of seems like a must win for the Razorbacks in a season where there aren't that many guaranteed wins on the schedule. I just got a weird feeling it's going to be a low scoring game. I feel like KJ Jefferson is going to have a great season, but I don't know. I feel like, week one coming out of the gate, going to have a little bit of rust. Because every year, we have a couple of those top 25 teams that don't exactly live up to expectations or come out kind of flat to open up the season. Since he's going to be jacked up for this game, trying to prove that, they still belong, to be talked about with those now elite programs, they have made a playoff. They're going to be a Power 5 team next year, and I think they're going to try to keep that momentum going, and they're going to make this a game and cause a lot of problems for Arkansas.
So you got Cincy +6 there and under 52. I'm going to take Arkansas -7 and under 52, or excuse me, -6 and under 52. Another really good game here on the slate, though. I'm agreeing with you, though, Joe. It's kind of stupid why this game isn't at 12. I'm going to roll with the home favorite, though, in this one. This Cincy team, as you touched on, lost a lot. But, I mean, losing Desmond Ridder, 2-time American Conference Player of the Year. They lost a running back, Jared Dokes. He was a draft pick by the Dolphins. I believe he got waived, but still, he was an integral part to that team over the past few years. Stud quarterback duo in Sauce Gardner and then Kobe Bryant as well. So they lose a ton from a team that was in the playoffs, the best team in program history. And now you start off the season, like you said, not scheduling a cupcake. They travel to an Arkansas team who you're saying that you think might underperform a little. I think they're a program on the rise, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them up there competing with the likes of Bama, Georgia, LSU within these next few years. I really like Pittman as the head coach. I think KJ Jefferson is a dark horse Heisman candidate. He had some really nice performances last year that surprised me. This game should be really physical and a battle between the line of scrimmage with styles of play that we are kind of accustomed to seeing from both of these teams. Pittman, former offensive line coach, I believe, at Georgia, he wants to build up the trenches. Cincinnati kind of wins with their defense and toughness over these past few years, and then with a few occasional splash plays from Desmond Ridder. I was listening to a podcast earlier. Since he hasn't even named a starting quarterback yet, they have like 2 guys listed as the starter on their initial depth chart. So when you're traveling to an SEC team who's ranked with a lot of returning guys, especially at quarterback, I feel like that's just a recipe for a loss. So when it comes down to that, I'm going to take the SEC team who's at home to win and cover in a defensive battle. Fourth game on the slate, I'm like really looking forward to this one. And even though it's one of these teams is not ranked. I think this is a game I'm most excited for this weekend, and that's number 7 Utah traveling to Florida to play at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Utah's a 3-point favorite, and the over/under is 51. But there's a lot of buzz around this game, mainly because of the quarterback for Florida, Anthony Richardson, who's getting some number 1 overall pick type buzz. So, what are your thoughts on this game, Joe?
I mean, Coyle, you said it. I think this actually is potentially the most important game of the weekend. If you just look at what it could do for Utah's playoff hopes and just their season and the trajectory of Florida under Billy Napier. Another huge shout out for Utah, just like Cincinnati, for taking this game and playing this game. Not many Power 5 teams, will be willingly go to the Swamp to open up the season. Take some balls to schedule a non-conference road game against a Power 5 school. Something Florida hasn't done, excluding Florida State because it's a rivalry and they play every other year. Since 1991, Florida has not played a non-conference road game. That was at Syracuse. Little fun fact of the day. But the dream season for Utah could literally end week 1. I'm not trying to be like hyperbolic or dramatic, but it's true. They lose week 1, Utah's done. No one cares about them anymore. Utah's going to make mistakes. That's going to happen, when you go to the Swamp and you're playing in such a hostile environment, especially Florida fans who are rabid for, their team to get back on track after a really bad year last year. I mean, last season was really bad. Like, looking back, they had that close game against Bama, which Bama did a lot, but Florida was terrible last year. They were in a shootout, 70-52 with Samford or whatever. Just a bad team, lost the bowl game. Weren't that great. I think this is going to be a very fun game to watch. I think this is going to be the game everyone ends up tuning into because I feel like the game we're going to talk about next could have the potential to get a little ugly, which I hate to say. But I think Cam Rising is going to make more plays down the stretch than Anthony Richardson will for Florida. I think Kyle Whittingham down the stretch is going to outcoach Billy Napier just a little bit.
So you're taking Utah minus the 3, and then what do you say?
I don't think I said the score. Utah 26, Florida 21. Utah minus 3, under 51 are my picks.
There you go. I'm taking Utah as well in this one. I got them winning 33-27, so I'm taking the Utah minus 3 and the over in this one. I think if this was another SEC school like South Carolina or Mizzou, not just saying the way they are, but just that name, the brand name of Florida, I think having that next to it makes this spread a little lower because I don't think they're going to be that great this year in the first year under a new head coach in the SEC. It's going to take time to rebuild that program up. I think Utah would be more like a 10-point favorite if it was against a school who had a smaller name. But because it's Florida, you're traveling to one of their tougher environments in college football no matter what. That place is going to be rocking for the start of a new era on Saturday night. First game for head coach Billy Napier, and he's working in a really talented young quarterback who's getting some Heisman and first pick in the draft buzz with Anthony Richardson. I think I heard a stat the other day. He only has 66 career pass attempts, but all the tools, all the athleticism, I'm hearing Cam Newton comparisons with him. So he doesn't have a layup coming in, though, as some of these SEC schools kind of schedule at the beginning of the season. Bama has a Utah State coming to town, for example, who was trailing to UConn 14-0. They play a Utah team who has kind of some playoff expectations by a lot of people. Cam Rising really impressed me down the stretch last year. Watched a lot of Utah when they were playing Oregon in the regular season and then that Pac-12 title game. And then in the Rose Bowl, he had a really nice performance as well. This Utah Utes team is really good on both lines of scrimmages, and Kyle Whittingham is a top 5 coach in college football, in my opinion. I think that's enough to kind of get over this hype of Florida, the road environment, just the big game nature. I think he's going to have his guys focused and locked in, and they're not going to be fazed by the Swamp. So they win, they cover, and the over hits as well. And then the last game of the slate before we get into our best bet and upset special, we have your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, number 5 team in the country, at number 2 Ohio State. This is 7:30 kickoff on ABC. Ohio State enters as a 17.5-point favorite, over under 58.5.
I have Ohio State winning this game, unfortunately, 45-35. Notre Dame's going to cover that 17.5. I'm going to take the over of 58.5. Just too many weapons for my Irish to overcome. I think 17.5 is just way too much to begin with, especially for a top 5 matchup. That's got to be a record for 2 teams ranked in the top 5 in terms of point spreads. And it's got to be one of the biggest underdogs I can remember for Notre Dame since, I mean, 2016 we were terrible. We went 4-8, and '07 we were 3-9. So you got to. I would assume there was probably some lopsided spreads in those seasons, but I mean, this is crazy. I think we're going to keep it within that number, but I think we'll make it like a 10-point game late. I think it's going to be one of those things where Ohio State's going to be up big, like 20, 17, 24 points. We'll kind of have like a backdoor cover type situation because I don't think the players are going to quit under Marcus Freeman. First regular season game under him, and he was technically an interim when we blew that game against Oklahoma State in the Fiesta Bowl last year. Still haven't won a BCS or New Year's Six bowl game since the BCS was created, so that's fun. But that being said, I think there's going to be a lot of positive takeaway from this game because Ohio State, I mean, a lot of people are saying is going to win the national title this year. Jarrett Patterson, our fifth-year preseason All-American left guard, is questionable, which makes me very nervous because the last thing you need when you're going up against a team like Ohio State is to have one of your star players injured. I'm really excited to see what Tyler Buchner's going to be able to do at quarterback though going forward. Sophomore, he didn't play a whole lot in 2021, but when he did, he had a lot of positive plays. He's a mobile quarterback. He was averaging 7.3 yards per carry. He had 3 touchdowns from the quarterback. He had some solid passing numbers as well. He ran more than he passed just because that's the quarterback that's the role he fit last year. At the end, though, I just don't think we're going to be able to keep up with C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Trayvon Henderson. I am curious to see, though, if that Ohio State defense is still going to be a question mark like it was last year.
All right, so you're taking Notre Dame plus 17.5 and over 58.5. I'm going to go with Ohio State 38, Notre Dame 24. So I have the same 2 plays as you there, plus 17.5 and the over. I think I saw they were 20.5-point dogs to Bama in the 2020 playoffs. So that's probably their biggest underdog spread in recent memory. But I'm shocked to see this. I saw Marcus Freeman was asked in the press conference if he was surprised that they were a 17.5-point underdog, and he kind of played it off like he didn't know that they were. And then he was like, "What was that again? Like, what was the spread? 17.5." He's like, "All right, I'm going to bring that up in our team meeting." So that's kind of like some bulletin board material I think that he's using, and those guys aren't going to, no matter what, that number will be in their head. They're not going to want to let it get over that 17, even if 17.5, even if Ohio State's kind of controlling the game, I think. But I guess that kind of shows how big of a difference it is between the Vegas views between Bama and Ohio State and the rest of the nation right now, because between 2 and 5, and it's a 17.5-point favorite. Then you look at Georgia at 3, and I guess you could even lump Georgia into that as well. Georgia at 3 and Oregon at 11, still a 17-point favorite. I don't think Marcus Freeman is going to let his team, though, come out and get blown out in his first regular season game as head coach. A lot of turnover, I think, with this Notre Dame team. I want to see kind of what they look like under him, but their offense just doesn't have the firepower to compete with Ohio State all night. I think it's going to be a tight battle throughout the first half. We could see maybe a tie game going into halftime, and Ohio State pulls away down the stretch, but Notre Dame finds a way to cover this one. So give me Notre Dame plus 17.5 and over 58.5. Now we'll get to our best bets of the week. What do you like here, Joe?
So my best bet, which I'm 1-0 in, by the way, which is very good for me because I wasn't expecting a hit. 2 plus 3.5. Purdue's at home here. West Lafayette is one of the more underrated venues in college football, especially for a night game. West Lafayette's claimed a lot of victims over the years. Last season they beat number 3 Michigan State 40-29. We all remember when Ohio State went down to Purdue and got the crap kicked out of them. I think Aiden O'Connell is a very good quarterback. I think he's going to be a dark horse for like Big Ten Player of the Year, just because I feel like C.J. Stroud is going to put up monster numbers regardless, and it might kind of be a thing where it's like, well, look at what Aiden O'Connell did for Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's going to outdo Sean Clifford. I'm not a big Sean Clifford guy, not very high on him for Penn State. I think Purdue is going to win this game outright. I didn't want to do this as my upsets. We'll get into that in a minute, but Purdue is also a legitimate sleeper in the Big Ten West. That's the best part about that division. You can literally talk into any one of those 7 teams going on a run and winning the division. Even after week 0 now that we saw Nebraska lose to Northwestern and we saw Illinois look – I know it was Wyoming, but they still looked really good against Wyoming. Like, you can really talk yourself into any of these 7 teams in that division. I think it's going to be one of the more fun divisions in college football. Even if it doesn't produce a playoff contender, I think Purdue is definitely a team to watch going forward.
Yeah, I like this Purdue team as well. My best bet of the week, I'm going to take under 53.5 in the Coastal Carolina and Army game. Looked at Army's schedule last year. The total went under this in 9 out of their 13 games. As we know, they love to run that triple option attack, keep the ball on the ground and just run. That usually plays for some low totals, except last year's game against Wake Forest, where I think it was like 70-56 or something like that. Um, Coastal plays a unique option style attack too, as well, but theirs features a little bit more in the passing game than Army does. But still, they like to run the ball and keep the ball on the ground as well. Grayson McCall, he's a nice dual threat quarterback. Army's still going to find the way to control the clock and run that damn option though, keeping this total low. I like this game around like 25-20, something like in that range. Coastal Carolina, I think wins, but I like this under 53.5 for my best bet. And then our last talking point of this week's show, we have our upset special of the week. I'll go first on this one. You kind of already touched on Purdue. I'm taking that as my upset special, Purdue over Penn State with Purdue at home. You talked about Aiden O'Connell as well. I think he is up there with KJ Jefferson as a potential dark horse Heisman candidate. He threw for 28 touchdowns and 3,700 yards last year, had a few monster performances. He wants to start off his senior campaign the right way with a bang. And like you're saying, Joe, Purdue at night is one of the more underrated, I think, venues in all of college football. They do claim some victims like Ohio State a few years ago. So watch out for Purdue this year. If they win this game at home in like a statement fashion where it kind of was never really in doubt, the Big Ten is going to be on notice. And if their defense picks it up, their offense is always going to be there. If their defense picks it up this year, they could contend for a Big Ten title, I think, and potentially match up with Ohio State there in the title game.
My upset pick, when I'm doing upset picks, I like to kind of look around and see where a potential upset could happen. Last week, I think close with Idaho State, UNLV. But out of the games we had left, I don't know. I thought UNLV was going to be really bad. Anyways, that being said, going into this week, there's 2 games that I'm keeping my eye on, but the game I'm going to pick for the upset special is East Carolina over NC State. I think NC State was like 11 or 12-point favorites when I looked. I don't remember off the top of my head. Should have written it down. I didn't. But East Carolina fans, not a lot of people know about this. This is actually a pretty big rivalry, especially to East Carolina. This is their number one rival. They hate NC State. This is going to be the 32nd time that they're meeting each other. They started this rivalry in like 1970, I believe. This is only going to be the 5th time that East Carolina is actually hosting the game. NC State all-time this rivalry is 18-13, which is really impressive for East Carolina, considering the fact that almost all the games they played have been away from home. But you see this all the time. When you're a G5 team and you get one of the Power 5 teams from your state on your schedule, whether it's at home or on the road, you're jacked up for it. Because a lot of those guys think that they were good enough to go to NC State, and they didn't get picked by NC State, so now they're at East Carolina. And especially going to East Carolina, it's going to be like the Super Bowl for the Pirates. This is a game that's going to be on ESPN noon. I think it's going to be the best game of the noon slate. East Carolina isn't a bad team either. All 5 of their losses last year were to good teams. Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, South Carolina, and App State on a neutral site. All solid losses to have. I know, it's still 5 losses, but they're a good team. If NC State doesn't play their A game, they could be in a lot of trouble. This seems like a recipe for disaster, especially for an NC State team that's projected to have the best season in school history.
Yeah, that would be a devastating blow. There's been some talk I've seen about NC State going to the playoffs with Devin Leary, another potential Heisman player at the quarterback spot. So that'll do it for this week's show, College Football Week 1. Hopefully we have a bit more success than we had in Week 0. But I think with the better teams, we kind of have a bit of a better understanding of them. But still, so much turnover, so many new faces and new places. It might take us a few weeks to get back in the groove. But any last comments before we head out, Joe?
Let's get after it. Best time of the year.
All right. We will talk next week.